Welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast. I'm your host, Big Ken. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a streaming service, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. You'll be notified whenever I drop any new content. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I have a great guest for you today. It's only taken me 2 years to get him to come on and do an episode. Please welcome Joe Donato from Premier Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Joe, how you doing?
Ken, it's great to be with you. I don't think it took 10 years, maybe a year and a half. And it's D. Donato. It's D. Donato. All the teachers used to mess that up too.
Oh, it's D. Donato.
D.
Oh,
Donato.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If my father was still alive, he'd go nuts if he heard that. So I got to correct
all
you.
right. All right. Well, we can go back and start again if you want.
No, it's okay. I'm used to it.
All right. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
And then I'm so used to just Premier Sports. I had to come up with the cards and memorabilia too. So learning all these new things. I've known you all this time, and now I'm learning all these new things in a short amount of time.
Yep.
So
I was trying to think of the first time we met, and it was the Mohegan show. We were set up next to each other.
Yeah, and I think that was 2 years ago.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. About 2 years ago. Right?
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago. It was at the Mohegan show. We connected pretty quickly, and I think it's probably because we have similar backgrounds. Similar. Yep. Walked through similar paths in life. Speaking of which, why don't you just give us a little background of who you are, let the listeners know.
Sure. So, I mean, I've always been a card collector, even when I was a young kid. Started when I was probably 7 or 8. Then got out of it, for about 15, 20 years. Funny how I got back into it. I was a police officer, and I got injured on the job. In about 2008, I fell down some stairs. Not a glamorous. I wish it was a great story. It wasn't. I fell down some stairs. I was busted up pretty good, so I was out of work for about 10 weeks. I was on crutches, and I was driving my wife crazy. Just at home looking for stuff to do. I found an old box of cards in my daughter's closet that I had when I was a kid. Started going through them. I was hooked again. Got price guides, started buying up stuff. And as you know, when you get into the hobby, you can really get into the hobby.
Yeah.
And I just started buying like crazy from 2000 to 2010, and totally into the hobby. Loved it. Was amazed at how much it had progressed over the years and how much it actually became a business. Ended up buying a warehouse full of sports cards in Rhode Island, and realized I probably got in over my head a little bit. There's about 15 million cards in there. So I hired a guy. We started going through it, put it on eBay, created an eBay store. This is about 2010. And ended up buying a retail store in 2010. And I did that for about 3 years. Realized that was...
I was going to say, did you take all those cards from the warehouse and put it in the retail store? Or did the retail store come full of cards?
So it was... The warehouse was like 10,000 square feet. That was in one part of Rhode Island. I opened up a retail store in North Providence, Rhode Island. And I used the store as a mechanism to start selling through the warehouse. And it was just so much work. The retail store, I never really knew how much work it was to run your own business. I mean, I made a ton of mistakes. So I look at guys now that own retail brick and mortars, and I give them a lot of credit, because it is, for those of you that don't know, it is a ton of work.
Yeah.
Ton. So, and then I did the store till 2013 and got out of that. It was just, like I said, way too much. I retired 2022 and just jumped full back into it. And I'm loving it. Go shows, meet a lot of great people. I'm having a blast right now, making my own hours. It's good. It's fun.
So I know I probably know the answer to this, telling me how hard it was to run your own store, but during that 2010 to 22, were you setting up at any shows, or were you strictly just online and through the retail store?
I didn't do a lot of shows back then. Very rarely. Maybe if there was a mall show, I'd set up, try and promote the store a little bit. But we did very well in the store. We did in 2010 and 11, we started doing in-store box breaks. I mean, think about how long ago that was. We were actually on
Yeah.
Friday nights doing box breaks in the store, and it started with 4 or 5 of us. And by 2013, we would probably have 20, 30 people. I was up to like 1 o'clock in the morning on Fridays. We were just doing the in-store breaks. We were having a blast, and
Uh-huh.
met a lot of awesome people, customers that are still friends to this day. A lot
Yeah.
of them, 2 of the guys I can think of own card shops in Rhode Island now.
Huh.
So yeah, we all started there on Friday nights, and it's just
Yeah.
worked out to be, a lot of the best part of the hobby is the relationships you make, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
And definitely one of the best parts. So,
Yeah.
we're still friends to this day, a lot of us.
Yeah. How did your box breaks work back then? Were you doing players, teams, divisions?
Very unscientific. We used to have the cardboards that they would put in the wax pack, the wax products that were fillers, and we would just write numbers on them. And we would rip open boxes and boxes of stuff, and we would just write one. If there were 4 people in the break, 1 through 4, turn them over, mix them up, and then people would just pick.
It was
And
like
if you
hit
got,
draft.
yep, like a snake draft in fantasy football. So if you
Yep.
got number 1, you got the first pick for whatever was open that night.
Yeah.
And there were some times where I can remember one in particular. It was a pretty bad group of boxes we opened, and then we hit a Brady Auto 1 of 1 out of a limited football product.
What?
And everybody was like, okay, there's one, everybody wants number 1. Because after that, there's nothing left. And there was some competitiveness there. And some of my customers still talk about that night. Because it was a new guy. I believe it was a new guy. His first time there actually picked number 1 that night. They wanted to lynch him up by a tree.
You guys didn't buy the card right back off of him?
They tried. He wasn't selling.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much the way we did it. Sometimes we would do division breaks with football. It was always football. Even back then, football ruled the drafts and the breaks and everything. Back then, we were buying boxes of certified football I was buying them for like $80, selling them for 110, 105. I mean, now it's a whole different animal.
Yeah. See, it's hard to even touch some of those hobby boxes now. Yeah. And it doesn't make, I mean, I won't get into that, but when you start opening up some of these new hobby boxes and you're like, what, wait a minute, I spent what? And I got like $100 worth of cards out of it, sometimes not even. So
And there's nothing more fun than opening wax, but you got to get a good return on your investment, at least a halfway decent return. And when you start to get 10% back, it can be frustrating.
Yeah. And I always slip back into those old hobby ways. I'm like, oh, I never get anything out of those. And then I see another one. I'm like, I'll try one more.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's like wildfire. Like some of those breaks we did, if we got a couple of good boxes going, I'd sell the wax out. I mean, it would be contagious. And we had those good nights as a store owner. You want those nights. You want your customers to get a good return on their investment.
Yep.
But when you start to see those boxes or even a case open and you're like, oh my God, the best card in here. I remember we opened a master case of certified football one time. And we got, I think it was 2012. It was Ryan Tannehill in 2012. It's like a Ryan Tannehill rookie patch auto was like the master case hit. And you could just feel the room just go, oh.
Deflate. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we were all hoping for, back then it was Andrew Luck and Robert Griffin.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted. So Russell Wilson too. So yeah, as a shop owner, you hate to see those box breaks that are just, oh God.
Yeah. What were you ripping as a kid? What was your go-to back then when you first started?
It was all baseball. It was all baseball. And I didn't rip wax. They had rack packs. You go to a supermarket and they'd have those little things near the register and they'd have the rack packs with like 3 rows of cards.
Yeah.
That was my thing. I just go home, rip them open, keep all the Red Sox players, trade all the Yankee players to my best friend, and didn't care about value.
Yeah. So when you dug back into that box all those years later, was there any value in there?
Not really. I mean, I can remember clearly I'd put every every team was wrapped in a rubber band, God forbid, with no protection, because there was no protection back then,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I'd have a stack of Chicago Cubs cards, and it'd be wrapped in, and the cards would be damaged on both sides of them. But I wasn't doing it to protect the cards and make
Yeah.
money back then as a kid. So um, I had probably no value back then, but they were all from the 70s, and I just liked getting back into it. It never left me. But other things took priority during all those years.
Yeah. So what's your collecting strategy now versus, I mean, I see you set up at Mohegan and you come in and get like 7, 8 tables. You got a whole crew of kids that come in and work for you. And you've got everything from ultra modern to vintage, and you know, such a variety in your cases. What is your strategy on cards? When you're out buying and you're filling your cases, what are you thinking?
It's I think my strategy changes by the week sometimes. Um, I try to have a diverse enough amount of stuff for the show where anybody that walks by might be interested in something they see. So I have a little bit of hockey, a little bit of football, basketball. I try to stay out of, no offense, women's sports because I don't know a lot about it.
You're leaving that for me.
I stay out of soccer, mixed martial arts, stuff like that. There's a lot of people that ask for it. I have enough time filling 7 showcases at a show and 5 or 6 value boxes just with fresh inventory. I mean, that's my biggest challenge. But
Yeah.
I try to have a little bit of everything so that I don't miss any of the customer base.
Yeah. And I know you've talked to me before about having your blue chip and the way
Yeah,
you think of it as stocks, to have a little bit of everything in there.
I do. It for me, it's a good analogy. I know it probably gets old because it seems like everybody's using it now, but for me, my passion's always been vintage baseball. Um, I just I love anything from the 50s or earlier with Hall of Fame players.
Mhm.
But it's tough to find that stuff right now. That
Yeah.
stuff is impossible to find.
Unless you're
So
Ken
that's my
Golden.
what's that?
Unless you're Ken Golden.
Yeah, well,
Do you watch
unlimited
you watch
resources help.
Yeah, have you seen the new season? All the
No, I didn't
baseball,
see it.
just yeah. Unbelievable cards he's pulling out. Yeah, or
Was that
people are
I did
trying.
see it. I did see a guy that had like $100 million worth of cards on one of those videos. It was crazy stuff. I think it was like 7 or 8 cards, and he valued it at like $100 million or something.
Yeah,
Crazy,
probably. Yeah.
crazy. I
Yeah,
mean, the vintage is always where my heart is, but I mean, that's for me. That's the blue chip stuff.
yeah,
The tech stock is all the new quarterbacks and the hottest new player and everything, and it's volatile, but you can make a lot of money on that stuff if you buy it right.
yeah, yeah. And that's kind of where I jumped in, where I started. And of course, the people I was surrounded with
Yeah,
was mostly ultra modern. So that's kind of new, what I knew, what I
right.
figured out how to do. And then it's interesting how a lot of those people that I was surrounded with, they all broke off and went to the vintage stuff. They gave up on the ultra modern stuff. And I like it. I like being it because it's what I do, and I talk about it all the time. It's that the fantasy football, the watching the football, all that. It's like I'm so like I know everything about every player, so I just assume
Right.
stick with what I know. Type. And I've always thought about, and you and I have talked about. I've talked about this with you about buying some vintage, but I know nothing about it, and it's like, do I really want to like go down this whole new road learning about and there's so many little things like even things that I've learned with football like over the last 3 or 4 years that I didn't even know is would be important, that it's important with certain players and cards and things like that. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing that with vintage now, going back and figuring that all out with registration and eye appeal and
Yeah,
all that stuff.
especially when you go back into like the T206s, where
Mhm.
it's a massive collection and there's so many different variations and different poses and everything. I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on that stuff. You
Yeah.
don't see a lot of that stuff though. Don't see a lot of
Yeah.
that stuff at all. I've been trying to buy vintage now for a year. I have vintage buyers calling me constantly. It's when I get it, I overpay for it.
Yeah.
I have to if I want to acquire it. And if I can make a quick 10%, I'm okay with it. Just keeps the ball moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, the percentages are they're and a lot more people with everything, not even with modern or even vintage. I mean, I think the percentages have gotten so tight on what's going because I think what happens with the vintage, especially, is because people buy it to hold it. You know, people you don't really see a lot of people buying vintage to go keep flipping it somewhere else, buy it here, sell it there, type of thing, like we see at the shows. So the vintage people are buying, they're looking for it, they're holding it. And
yeah,
hey,
you don't really have to know. I mean, you can buy a nice vintage collection and know that you're probably not going to take a hit on it,
yeah,
but it's not going to appreciate very quickly. It's going
yeah,
to stay pretty solid. With the football, I've noticed, like, I mean, you talk a lot about football. I'm still trying to figure out some of the newer football stuff because it's a year-round thing. Everybody wants it year-round, but there's so much volatility in that stuff
hmm
that you can, especially during COVID. I mean, COVID was we've never experienced anything like that in the hobby before, right? I mean, if anything, I think that the card market and the hobby itself was probably heading in a downward spiral prior to COVID in a lot of ways. I think
yeah,
that's what I saw anyway. I saw that the hobby prices for boxes was getting very expensive. There was too much product out there. And I started seeing retail stores close left and right. And then COVID hit and it just kind of it spun everything back and reversed it. And now we haven't the we were so busy and prices were so crazy during COVID. I think we're just starting now maybe to come back down to earth a little bit. It's taken years.
yeah,
I don't know if you
yeah.
agree with I don't know if you agree with that, but
No, I do agree with it, and I'll tell you one other thing that I saw too, and it was one of my experiences, is a lot of people when they shut down the casinos during COVID and things like that. A lot of people, that the online gambling, they would, but the sports wasn't the teams weren't playing either, right? Everything kind of was getting shut down, and this was a way you could go on and I guess you could call it gambling, but it was it was a way to feed that that need, right? So,
right,
and I came from that. I used to spend a lot of time at the casino, and then I got into the back into the hobby, back into the cards, and it was fulfilling. I didn't need to go back. I
right,
felt this was more rewarding than that, and I think a lot of people did too. And even when I started setting up, there were a lot of people that used to come in and just buy to buy, right? I mean, they came in and they would say, "Oh, I think this guy is going to be the next guy," and they would buy up all his cards, right? Kyle
right,
Trask, he's my man. With really no other information than hoping
right,
that I'm going to buy all these things and he's going to be the starter and I'm going to become rich, type of an attitude,
right,
and I think we lost a lot of those people who got hurt,
right,
and then a lot of I feel it was a lot of these younger kids coming in have really gotten have really catapulted the hobby really up to where it is now, for better or worse, right? It's where we are now in the hobby.
right. All right. I like dealing with the younger people in the hobby because I think the hobby needed just a whole generation of people to get back into it.
Yeah,
They can be a little difficult to deal with, buying, selling, and trading,
yeah,
and they don't really know the nuances of the whole thing. Sometimes when they go to a show and they see you or me set up, and they don't understand the costs. I mean that it takes to set up at a show for a weekend. I mean, for me to set up at a 2 day show, 5 tables, 4 guys, hotel rooms, all that stuff, it's expensive. And so I always try to tell people if we're at a deal at a show and it's kind of like even, let me get a little bit of an edge on this one.
yeah,
I should get a little bit of an edge as the dealer because I got a lot more expenses than just walking around the show with a case of cards. Some people get it. Some of the young guys have to be educated. It's funny. The only problem I ever had, and I always think about this particular situation, it was a Mohegan show, and this guy walked up, and we were doing a fairly big deal, and of course, he wanted 100% for his stuff. He wanted to pay 80% for my stuff, and I said, you want me to give you wholesale prices, but you're not a dealer. He said, and he looked at me and he was dead serious. He says, make no mistake, everybody in this room's a dealer. And it just aggravated me when he said that, because he was true. He was not lying. Everybody was a dealer in the room. They were flipping cards. But I just kind of like said to him, so let me see your retail certificate. Let me see your tax ID number.
Yeah.
Because it's costing me a couple $1,000 to set up here for the weekend. And I got to pay all these guys. What are your costs? You want the benefits of being a dealer, but you don't want to pay anything to be a dealer.
Mm.
And that's probably the only disagreement I've ever had with anybody. Yeah. And I really felt that way. Everybody wants to be a dealer, but they don't want to do what it takes to be a dealer.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on their percentages right now, as far as buying and selling? Like, I know people and I do the same thing. We get in our mind and we say, okay, we've got these cards. What percentage? Because we're not going to get 100%. When you're going to set up a show, no one's going to come in and say, oh, that's $250. That's what the comp is. Okay, here's the money. I'm just going to buy the card. So do you base your percentages on how well you're into a card, or do you just put it right down the line? I'm doing 85 or 90 or 92 or...
The $1 million question. It's all what you pay for the card.
Yeah.
It's all what you I don't want to hold cards very long. So I think it was just like we were talking about. There's so many quote unquote dealers that everybody wants to be in the business and flip cards as quick as possible and make the most they can. Unfortunately, there's very few collectors. And because
that's the problem.
Right? So the collectors will pay 100%. They'll come into the showcase. They'll look at a Mickey Mantle card. They say, I need that. I'll take it. They'll look at it. No questions asked. So my percentages, first, it depends on what it costs me to acquire the card. And I'll pay up on a hot card like you will, like anybody will. If somebody walks in with right now, Tatum is on fire still. So if somebody walks up with a rookie autograph at Tatum, I'm paying 90% for that card. Because I know at the next show, when I put it out, I might make 5%. I'm flipping the card. Even better, I might get more trade value back.
Yeah.
So it's the margins. The margins are awful. I don't know if you can agree with that or not, but my margins are awful. That's where owning a store comes in. If you own a brick and mortar, you can really acquire collections at really good prices. And so most of us don't have brick and mortar stores, but my friends that have brick and mortars, their phone rings nonstop. They are absolute fools if they don't have everybody walk into their store.
Yeah.
Any shop owner that says, I'm not buying right now is a fool. I got a case of 88 top. Bring it in. I got 91 Flair baseball. Bring it in. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
Bring it in.
You're absolutely right.
Have the people come in, look at it, establish a relationship with them. And maybe the 52 mantle that's in the safe because they like you and you were fair with them on the junk, maybe they'll bring you back the good card at some point. So,
I had a friend of mine who opened up a store down the street from me. It's probably been closed for a year now, but for the year he was in business, like he would call me up. He'd say, hey, because he knew what I like to buy, and he'd say, hey, I got a guy. He's coming in with this or that, because he was just inundated with people coming through the door all the time. And he was buying so much, but he wasn't selling anything. Right. So, I mean, he was running out of means to buy these collections. So he started calling me, and I was 10, 15 minutes away. I'd run down the street every time. Let's say I'm always available. I'll make myself available, to get down there. And when that store closed, I thought to myself, Man, if you could just set up a retail thing, even if you don't sell anything there, right? It's that getting all those cars through the door and find another way to go sell
Right.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the same thing where in the town I live in. My old store is still in operation. It's just a new owner now, and we have a really good relationship. And he calls me from time to time. Hey, there's a vintage collection. I'll be right there. He doesn't even have to finish the sentence. I'll be right there.
Yeah.
And as long as he doesn't mind me using his store to buy stuff, and I always throw him something, which is the appropriate thing to do.
Yep.
You treat the store owners right. If they don't want to buy something, if they call you, what's better than that?
Yeah. Yep.
What's better than that? I mean, that's
Yep.
why the shows for me have been great, because I just have these buying signs. And it was so bad. It was so good at Mohegan in June. I had to take the signs down at 2:00 on Saturday. I ran out of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which has never happened to me at a show. So, I mean, it was funny. Like, all right, now I got to start selling cards. Just buying so much.
Yeah. Yeah. But you do really well at those shows. I mean, you have such and it again, I talk about our backgrounds being similar. Like I observe, and I know you do too. We observe so many people at the show, whether they're people who are coming to walk the show or people who are set up, as dealers. And a lot of times what I do is I look to see who's successful and what makes them successful, right? And a lot of time, and like I look at what you're doing in there, and you've always got, I mean, you do have 7 or 8 tables, right? But you always have a crowd of people there, but it's always right down the line. I've got basketball, I've got football, I've got baseball, I've got hockey, I've got vintage, right? So you've got a little something for everybody in there. But the quality of the cards that you have in there are key, right? And I say that so much that I could have 10 cases of football and not sell anything. You could have 1 case of football and sell everything, right? It's the
Right.
quality of those cards that you're putting in there. So having that eye, knowing what to buy, right? Knowing what to buy and put in there. I mean, I'm sure you end up buying cards that you say, I thought this card would move like immediately, and it sits there and you can't understand why. And some of them you're like, well, I'll buy it, but it's never going to move, and you sell it immediately. I mean, just talk to me a little bit about, your thought process of what you think cards coming in are besides the vintage, because I know the vintage is big for you. Like uh, what characteristics of the cards are you looking at? Like, is it a patch? Is it numbered? Is it both? Is it an autograph? Like, what do you look for when you're trying to fill your cases?
It's going to sound weird. I really don't have a plan. It's on a collection by collection basis, but you can usually tell when someone walks up to your table as a dealer how vested they are in selling their stuff. If they keep the case really close to themselves and they're pulling out one card at a time, those deals are really tough.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like the person doesn't want to even show you the card because they really don't want to sell it. Other times, people just push their cases over, they'll slide it over and say, look at what you want. So I just look for things, first and foremost, that I think I can turn quickly. I have a pretty good grasp of what my customers are looking for. I have a lot of customers that come to my office between shows to buy stuff. So I keep a kind of a running mental note. Who's looking for Tatum's? Who's looking for Jaylen Brown's? Who's looking for Brady's? And as soon as I acquire stuff like that at a show, when I get back to the office on Monday morning, I'm calling my customers. Hey, come on in. I got some stuff.
Yeah.
And there's so much variety out there. It's like I look for stuff I don't have too. So I'll go into a show like at Mohegan in June. I was running out of football quarterbacks. Rookie quarterbacks, the Herberts, the Burrows, Allens. I didn't really have much of that. Burrow. So I was making an effort. Problem was not a lot of people were selling in June that stuff.
Yeah.
But if it walked up, I was buying it. So that was something I knew ahead of time I needed to be looking for because football season was right around the corner. And I was okay paying 80, 90% of the current comps on that stuff because the current comps were low. I knew the comps were going to go up.
Yep.
So I was okay. I was okay overpaying in June for football because the comps were lower. I thought, and they
Yeah.
probably were.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's my plan all year, right? I start early. I do 6 months of this, before, then I just try to, I hope that the market rebounds on them. And then and it's worked out for me the last couple of years,
Right.
that everything's up. So I don't even mind. And I know most people are like, oh, I'm only going to pay 80% or 85% or 90%. I mean, when I'm buying football in February and March, I'll pay 100%. Because
Sure.
I know that 100% is going to be, 130% come July. So I'm okay doing that. I'm okay just because I can hold the cards, right? I don't
Right.
mind holding the cards.
Right.
So
And
speaking of
this.
holding, oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say there's certain cards that we're always going to pay 100% for. For
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody walks up with a 52 mantle or a 51 maze or Michael Jordan rookie, I mean, I'm always going to be hyper focused on getting those cards because they don't walk up very often at shows.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to do trades. Everybody wants to. So that's the fun part of the hobby, right? Is acquiring those grail cards that take forever to sell, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they look really good in the showcases. And just having a big card in your showcases, it just stops people and they start talking. You start a conversation with them. It's you got to have some of that stuff too.
Yeah. And those bigger cards are hard to move just like an all cash deal, right? I mean, it's usually trade and cash and, a whole bunch of things happening in between to
Right.
get those bigger cards. And I know I've done the same thing. I picked up a big card from you.
Yeah.
That Brady auto I got from you.
Don't remind me. Don't remind me. I love that card.
Yeah. But it's interesting the journey that they travel, right? I mean, where the card comes from, and I talked about on my I used to talk about all my cards came with a story, right?
Yeah.
So I could say, I could talk about the story of the card when the people would come up, and it just got to a point lately, like nobody wants to hear the old guy talk, It's like, bro, you gonna sell me that card or not? Just
Yeah.
give me the card,
Yeah.
I don't need to hear a story,
Yeah.
and it's eyes on the phone and looking at the making the calculations and the percentages, and
Yeah.
this weekend was a little different for me, so I was excited, like people were actually
Right.
having some conversations about some of the cards.
Yeah.
Uh,
The
but
collectors like to talk about how they like collectors. They love to share their stories, especially when you go to somebody's house.
yeah,
The first hour is always the stories behind the collections, which I love.
yeah,
I
yeah,
love to hear that stuff.
yeah.
So
So what do you PC? So when something comes up, which is that you'll get your hands on it, but you're hard pressed to sell, what would it be?
well, I tried to pick up a 52 tops mantle at the National in Chicago last year.
Yeah,
And I had all my homework done, and I said, just give me a PSA 1 that's decent, good eye appeal. And I had my price, and I couldn't acquire one. So if I was able to acquire a 52 tops mantle, I would put that in my PC. That would be the only card that's in my PC. I'm
that
still
would be
trying to acquire that. Yep.
yeah,
Yep. I don't have anything anymore in my PC. Once I started the business, I said, all right, am I going to be a collector? Am I going to still hold on to a couple of things? And I did for a long time. Some Joe DiMaggio game used jerseys and Ted Williams jerseys, like cheap stuff, but I just love those dirty old uniforms in the cards. They're all game used.
yeah.
But even that stuff I put out at showcases now. So the 52 mantle is really my only grail card. I haven't acquired it yet.
Mhm.
So if anybody's out there and they want to sell one,
Are you going to the National this year?
no, nope,
No.
I'm not going this year. I talked it over with the family. I said, do we want to go to Cleveland or do we want to go to Florida? And the vote was Florida, which I can understand. I didn't sell it that well.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so we're going to Florida, an extended vacation in Florida in between shows in the wintertime. So
Oh, nice.
looking forward to
Nice.
that.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going to Chicago next year because that was I loved that. I was like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
And the
like,
one thing I
my,
like about that too is you could fly in, you can fly in. There's usually nonstop flights from anywhere. You get free ride to the hotel, and from the hotel you can just walk right. You stay across the street. We stayed across street last. You just get walking across. You didn't even need a car. Restaurants,
right.
everything were in walking distance. So
Yeah. Yeah. No,
yeah,
it was a great venue. I had a blast. No matter how prepared you are for that, once you get in that building, you can throw your
yeah,
plan, throw everything out the window. It's a free for all.
yeah, yeah. I've had
I
a
was,
few people reaching out to me. Oh, it's my first national this year. What's your advice? I said, comfortable shoes. Hydrate. Don't
yeah.
spend all your money in the first hour.
And do all your comps a few days before and have them on a spreadsheet or a piece of or your
Yeah,
phone or whatever.
yeah,
That was a tremendous help for me.
yeah,
Because trying to do it there on your phone and the craziness around you, just come prepared. Pick out the 10 cards you want, have all your comps done, be prepared, and have cash.
yeah.
So,
I did a spreadsheet for my very first time on this last show that I did in Chantilly. It was the first time I put a whole spreadsheet together, and I knew what I wanted to do, put it in. I had the what I paid for, what the values were on it, what 90% was, what 95% was. And I'll tell you what, like it was a huge help. Even being set up as a dealer, it was a huge help. When things got busy and somebody was like holding up a card and say, "Hey, can you do this on that?" And I look at it and I kind of glance at my sheet, and it was either yes or no. I could do this instead. That I didn't have
right,
to stop and yeah. So I think moving forward, it may be. And you know what? Sometimes too, putting that sheet together gets you to know the prices a little better too.
oh,
So it gets, after the first or second time you do it, like you're like, oh no, I know that card is whatever,
right,
So
right. And it's
yeah,
so weird because you could go to 50 local shows and never see like a Michael Jordan rookie. You go to the National, it's unbelievable how many there
yeah,
are, or the 52 Mantles or 54 Aarons, like just the huge Gretzky rookies. Like they're
yeah.
just everywhere.
Mm.
Where if one guy has one of those in a show, everybody's talking about it. But yeah, it's amazing. I'm gonna go back next year. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, yeah. I could see a little FOMO right now as they're getting closer to Cleveland. You're like, oh, I should have pushed Cleveland a little harder.
Yeah, I mean, my son actually is into Pokemon, and he was like he didn't really know what he's not really into sports cards as much. He helps us out at the shows, and he just was walking around with me at the National last year. We were just amazed, like it's just
Yeah,
like crazy, crazy. So anybody that's never been, you gotta go. You
yeah,
gotta go.
yeah.
You gotta go. So
So I know
I'm,
you got some cards over there in your desk you want to share with us.
I do because we got some shows coming up, and I wanted to show some of my recent acquisitions. I was pretty psyched about. I only pulled out 5, so I won't bore everybody.
Yeah.
So this is a must-have for every dealer in their collection.
So the people who are listening who aren't watching, you have to say what it is.
Okay, so this is a 2000 Bowman Chrome Brady that's going down about 1,000% in the last year, but still an awesome card to have in your collection.
Yeah.
If you can get a Brady autograph like I have here, can you see it?
A little higher.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
That's a 2016 Leaf on card Brady auto. Yeah, that's a must for any collector. A GOAT rookie is always must have. Doing everything backwards.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a Gretzky rookie in a 6. Love that card. I was always a huge
What
Larry.
did I got from you? I think I bought one of those from you at a show. 4, I think. Yeah, it was a
Yep,
4.
I had like 4 left. This is my last one.
Yeah, yeah,
My last one. I don't really want to give him up, but I guess that's a PC, right?
yeah.
The Larry Bird rookie in an 8.
Oh,
Just
nice.
an iconic card. Really, really psyched to acquire this one at the last Mohegan show. And a strong grade. And then my 2 favorite cards. The 52 Bowman Mantle. And I don't know if we can see this one. I'm going backwards here. The 86 Jordan rookie in a 9. So these are the centerpieces of my inventory right now.
Was that 9? Was that the one you had made a big deal at Mohegan for?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that. That was
This
a
took
couple shows ago.
This took an hour maybe
Yeah.
to get done. And
Yeah.
actually, you know, you're doing something right when there's like 8 people watching the deal. I mean, it's like a little crowd formed. It was kind of fun.
Yeah.
You got to be careful of the Jordans, though. You know, everybody knows, anybody that's in the hobby knows that they're doing a lot of shenanigans with the slabs and everything right now. So
Yeah.
I bought a $30 light. It's just a little black light, and if you shine it on the card, I've always showed people this. When you shine it, you'll see the PSA logos up here, and then on the back, you'll see the PSA logos on the little holograms. That's a good, but it won't work on older slabs. But
Yeah.
$30 to look, you know, those. It's scarier when they're coming up with fake slabs
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
putting $20,000 cards in fake slabs, and you know, it's not really a $20,000 card. It's a $1 reprint in a fake slab. Scary.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, at the card show, I mean, what do? If you buy that card and you walk off, you're done. I mean, it's just an L. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to really look at those cases, even the graded cases. If you see any little marks or bubbles or anything, cracks, you know, depending if it's a $2 card or a $50 card, that's one thing. If it's a $20,000 card,
Yeah.
buy at your own risk. You got to be
Yeah.
careful.
Vet that card well. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably one of the most faked cards out there is the
Yeah.
Jordan rookie. So,
Yeah.
so what do you got planned next?
Next I'm doing well, I'm going out to Cleveland. I lost my place you know,
Yeah.
at the National, so I'm setting up at the SoCo Expo. So I'm doing all you know, what I planned anyways, bring all my women's soccer out. I was going through that, and I have the WNBA stuff. I do have, you know, I didn't know how much football I would sell. I have some higher end football that didn't sell in Chantilly, and I really don't have any shows until then. So I'll probably bring the football to Cleveland when I'm walking around. I'm not sure, you know, at the show, maybe sell or whatever, or just hold it. And I'm doing my next show after that. I'm doing Fishtown
Okay.
in Philly. Yeah. So what about you? What shows you got coming?
What do I got coming up? I got a little list here. The Crown Jewel Card Show is at the Crown Plaza in Warwick this weekend, the 29th and 30th. Rhode Island doesn't have a ton of shows. This is a really well-run show. It's a good show, busy. They had a one-day show last year. They were so successful, they did a 2-day show. Emerald Square Mall in Massachusetts, right on the Rhode Island border. Cardboard Promotions and Hometown Collectibles put that show on. That's in August. I'm set up there. Of course, the Mohegan Show, EC3 Con, that's September 28th, a one-day show now.
Yep.
Scott's doing a one-day show. Looking forward to that. I think September is not a bad time to have a show. It's on a Saturday, which is smart, so
Yeah.
it doesn't affect
Yeah.
football.
Yeah, I just signed up for that.
Oh, you did? Good. Good.
Yeah.
November 23rd and 24th at EC3 Con, and then Shriners in Wilmington again in November.
Oh, that's right. I remember. I know I saw you at a Massachusetts show. We were talking vintage. That's where it was. It was at Shriners.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get in, and I took a table, and it was a slow show, but I met a lot of people, passed out a lot of cards and flyers and stuff. So bought some stuff. That's where I ended up getting that Brady that well, I don't want to talk about that. The Brady card, the 5-star.
5-star. Yeah.
Yeah. That was like a 2-hour transaction, that deal.
Yeah.
But I walked away with that card. So it's a successful show.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been great. I'm having a blast. It's the greatest hobby in the world, right?
Yep. Yep.
I mean,
and you have a whole other part of this hobby, right? Because I know all these pictures behind you is the same at the show. You sell a lot of these autographed pictures, and that's a kind of a whole separate part of your business. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Okay, real quick. It's probably 30% of my business is memorabilia. So I do a lot of golf tournaments, charity silent auctions. I provide the product for a lot of those organizations if they need it. You know, golf tournaments, they always have the silent auctions at the end of it or anything like that. So if anybody's doing a fundraiser and they need pictures, if it's a worthy cause, I'm very happy to donate too. So that's about 25 to 30% of my business is the pictures.
Yeah.
So it's a hassle bringing them to shows. It is really a hassle. And all the guys, they always ask me before the show, do we have to bring grid wall? Do we have to bring the pictures? Yep, you got to do it. So
do they sell well at card shows?
Not really.
No.
I might sell 4 or 5 pictures during a weekend, but it's funny. Whoever's hot. So Tatum, Brown, anything I had of them at the Mohegan show in June, gone. Gone.
Taylor
The
Swift.
Bruins were hot. They sell. What's that?
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift sells. I don't understand.
I was there when somebody was buying a Taylor Swift.
Yep, they always move. They always move. If a daughter walks in with dad, it's going.
Yeah,
it's going.
Little something for everyone.
That's what we try.
Yeah. Well, man, thanks for coming on. I appreciate this. Tell everybody where they can find you if they want to reach out, if they have questions, they want you to come do their silent auctions or whatever.
Sure, always welcome to reach out to me. It's I don't do a ton of social media, but I do post stuff once in a while. It's on Instagram. Premier Sports RI is my Instagram thing. So that's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And if you meet me at a show, I'm passing out hundreds of business cards. So all the information's on there too. So reach out to me anytime. And that's the best part, like I said, is meeting the people at the shows. Create these great relationships over the years.
Yeah. That's absolutely the best part of the hobby. And I say it all the time when I go out to these shows, having people just come up who, listeners just come up and talk to me who I've never met before. And I would have never met without having this podcast, right? Where now they're come up and introduce themselves and things like that. It's definitely the best part of the hobby. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I remember being you when you had your little chair at Mohegan the first time we met. And you pulled that chair out, and I was like, wow, this guy knows what he's doing. Look at this chair he's got here. He's like ready to roll. It was great.
That chair made the appearance at the last Mohegan too. It's been sitting in my garage for a while because a lot of these shows, it's too narrow. Like if I put that chair up, people can't get around you, or you're right up against the guy in the table behind you. But Mohegan does a nice job at leaving that big area where you can just put a big comfy chair up, and why not be comfortable, right?
Well, you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Well,
especially as we get older, we have to be comfortable as we get older.
Yeah, I got to take care of it. I mean, I don't know about you. I know at the end of a 1-day show, I'm sore. 2-day show, forget about it, right? I'm so anything I can do to make it more comfortable while I'm there. And now going out, like the last couple of years doing the national, like it was just by the end of the week, I was shy. I needed a week recovery.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Advil, popping Advil like crazy, and it's especially the 2 days, like you said. I mean, the prep for the 2-day shows it takes forever.
Yeah,
and that takes up most of my time is prepping, pricing, trying to keep up to date. I mean, that's the most time consuming thing for me. So
it's like a whole week for me. It takes
a week.
I don't even have as much as you, but I'm by myself. It takes a whole week, and I say this all the time. I just figure out how many feet I have. And I go to the dining room table. I set it. So I set up everything that I'm going to set up, and I set it up there, price it, figure it all out. So when I get to the show on Saturday morning, it's like nothing, I know where everything's going, but it is time consuming.
That's the biggest problem I'm having right now is keeping up to date on my comps and my prices and keeping my inventory fresh. It's a full-time job.
Yep.
Full-time job. So, but I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right, kid. Thanks for being on. We will look forward to seeing you. Well, I may even see you this weekend. I may take a ride out to that Rhode Island show on Saturday, so I may see you this weekend.
It's very convenient, Ken. Right off 95 here. The hotel's right there. So if you're not doing anything, stop by and say hello. I'll be the guy with the Taylor Swift picture.
All right. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please definitely subscribe. And most importantly, tell a friend and spread the word. Until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone around you. Thanks, Joe.
Appreciate it, buddy.